All right, so welcome back, New York Ranger fans, as well as Vegas Golden Knights fans. We got a special crossover edition for you guys here today. This is John Chick with Locked On New York Rangers, joined by Tony Cordasco of Locked On Golden Knights. Tony, how we doing today, buddy?
Terrific, man. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. You know, it was just a lot of fun the first time, and lo and behold, both of our teams are on top of their respective divisions now. And I wanted to ask you about the Knights. I know that they had a rally fall a little bit short against the Predators last night. They lose 3-2. But, they've been great lately after a little bit of a slow start to the season. I mean, is this team back? Are you seeing a team that, could make a championship run, as was kind of the goal coming into the season for Vegas?
Yeah, I think, again, it just depends on the health of this team because currently Mark Stone is out. Max Pacioretty is out. Max has he had wrist surgery last week. And then you had Robin Lehner, who hadn't played since the Islander game. He got hit in the chest and he's been out. And, they really have struggled, I think, to some degree as far as getting consistency. And sooner or later, right, all those injuries are going to add up. And that's, I think, what happened the past two games for the Golden Knights. The Winnipeg game, I mean, you score 4 goals on Hellebuck and you don't win the game. That was difficult, right? And then they come back against the Predators. I got to tell you, I'm impressed with the Predator team. And in that game, and here's a big statistic, every game, the Golden Knights are getting out hit. And in the game against the Predators this week, 55 hits by the Preds, 55 hits by Nashville. That's going to take its toll. And I'm not just thinking about the regular season. I'm thinking about the postseason, and especially in a 7-game series. But they've definitely cooled off of late, the Golden Knights.
It's funny you mentioned the Predators because the Rangers actually played them twice earlier in the season. They split with the Preds, but I'm just as impressed as you are with that team. I mean, they just punish you for the entire game. And I remember, the one game that the Rangers won against them, it was one of the more gratifying victories of the season to just take a beating against this big, tough, physical team and, still come away with 2 points. But I'm with you, man. I think that's a team that a lot of people are sleeping on that could be very dangerous come playoff time.
Yeah, for sure. And, one of the things that I noticed in that game against Nashville was just that the Predators kept the Golden Knights on the outside. Well, what we saw with the Rangers and their formula against Edmonton, what do? They kept the Oilers out of the paint, right? And they kept them outside. So I think if the Rangers could do that against VGK, they'll be in business. And then again, just start hitting the snot out of them. I think that, this is a finesse team. It really is. And I was just really concerned, about after the Anaheim game. The Golden Knights had 3 fights in that game. And the 3 fights that's a career tops. They've never had 3 fights in a game, and 2 by Braden McNabb. But if teams continue to roughhouse the Golden Knights, they're going to take them out of their game, or they're just going to flat out wear them down. There's no enforcer. Ryan Reeves is with the Rangers, as we know, and there's no one to step in there and just, mix it up. And I think it's going to hurt them. And they're just too finesse for me. And against Nashville just was really, they dominated the game and they played in their own offensive zone for most of the first period of play. And then they just simply, I felt, wore down the Golden Knights. It was 3-0. And then the Golden Knights came back with 2 late goals. But I'll tell you what, man, if teams continue to pound them, they're going to be in some trouble, I believe. And this, of course, there'll be a different team with the presence of a Max Pacioretty, and a Mark Stone. And, we're just hoping that Eichel gets back here. And they're saying sometime this month he'll join the team now. He won't play immediately. Obviously, the plan is still the same, maybe late February or into March, but he'll be back with the team. And then, then I think you have more firepower, but they have to get tougher.
Do you think that could be a point of emphasis? Because obviously, again, both of our teams are on top of their divisions, looking like they could be buyers, and the trade deadline's still a couple of months away here. But I mean, is there anybody that the Knights could call up from the minors, or is there anybody that, do you think that they could make a trade and maybe add a physical piece or two to this team to kind of complement the skill that they have?
Yeah, it would be nice to have a goon in there. It really would. But, I mean, once Eichel gets back, they have massive salary cap problems then, because then they're going to have to clear $10 million off the books, to take his place. And they've been doing a good job with playing salary cap gymnastics, lately, and moving some players around and all of that. But it's going to come back, and it's going to be really challenging for them. And there's a number of players that they've talked about that perhaps they could trade. Reilly Smith, his contract's up, $5 million. Love the guy. I think he does it. He brings it every night. He's a good player, heart and soul, part of the misfit line. Shea Theodore, could be another casualty. Evgeny Dodonov might be someone that goes, and they're just talking about a lot of different options because they're going to have to clear some space, and they're going to have to. They don't have any room to bring in, a big enforcer right now, and they thought that Keegan Colasar might have been that guy, but he's not a great fighter. Reeves tried to teach him how to fight, but I don't think it worked.
It's funny. You mentioned Reilly Smith, and he's somebody that I've kind of been doing this thing on my show. I'm going to eventually have an episode where I kind of read emails from the listeners and everybody's different trade ideas and whatnot. And I've heard Reilly Smith's name come up a couple of times. And, at first you hear Reilly Smith and it's like, well, why would the Knights trade anybody away? Because, they're a contending team and they're trying to win a cup this year. But to your point, Tony, they do have some salary cap issues. Is he going to be the guy that ends up getting moved in your estimation? You mentioned a couple of different players, but I think he'd be a great fit on the Rangers because they've had a little bit of a revolving door on the second line right wing spot. And I think he could step in there and do a nice job. But do you think Reilly Smith ends up getting moved by this team before the deadline?
I hope not. He does a lot in the community, and we've gotten to know him a bit from him doing this softball game over the summer, a charity game that he does with the Golden Knights against the Raiders. And he's just so active in our community, and it would be a tough loss, but he could be one of the options that they move. And and then we've got William Carlson, who for some reason, they just love this guy. They embrace him. He scores a goal, in the game against Nashville, and he kicks it in off of his skate, like accidentally, which, and his 100th career goal with the Golden Knights. Well, he had 43 the first season. Then he's been like crickets pretty much, the rest of the way. And with Eichel coming back, I still don't want to break up the first line. I still have Stevenson there. I still on the second line. I still say put Eichel there. Put Eichel on the second line and then move Carlson down to the third. And they did move him around, and they had him, out there with Janmark and Dodonov. They moved him like pretty much, I thought, a demotion, down to the third line in the game against Nashville. And so there's a lot of options. They have a lot of players, I think, that could be expendable. They just want to make sure that they have all the right pieces, and they don't want to see happen what happened against Colorado last year in the pivotal game that was for the President's Cup, basically, where they only suited up, but 15 players, and because of salary cap issues, that cannot happen again. Like, you can't have Jack Eichel and then the top line and the misfit line and then no one else. Like, the bottom six is going to definitely, they're going to struggle, I think, as a result of it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there as far as how to kind of, slot Jack Eichel into the lineup. I don't think you can move Stevenson, given the season that he's been having. And Carlson, it's weird with him because I feel like he set the bar so high for himself in that first season that he was with Vegas and was maybe playing a little bit over his head, and now just can't quite live up to that. Is that kind of the long and short of it? You obviously watch the Knights a lot more often than I do, so.
Yeah, too much. I need therapy. But, with Carlson, I just have this sort of love-hate relationship, because I say, what does he do for the team? And then the fans tell me he's a 200-foot player. That's all they say. 200-foot player. They don't know what that means some of the time. And especially, this is it's an organization at its infancy. And then people are just like, they just repeat what everyone else says. But I don't know quite what that means. He's starting to win faceoffs again, so that's some value there. But he just has 4 goals. He's been injured back and forth. Okay, we get that. They said, that he's been working late after practice. Great, and everything else. But Bill Foley just loves this guy for some reason. I am not like a big fan, just based on the fact that if they're paying him, good money, $5-6 million a year, he's got to produce. He's got to score. I don't want to hear 200-foot player again. And then, part of the finesse of this team is right there, William Carlson. And the other night I caught him puck watching, in the Winnipeg Jet game. They had 3 cracks at the goal and they put it in. He just standing there. I don't know. Like he can't roughhouse it. He's way too finesse. So it's interesting. And again, I think Pete DeBoer has just done a fantastic job. I wasn't like the biggest fan of Peter DeBoer before the start of this season in particular, because again, like, when this organization began, everyone was all in on Gerard Gallant. And so I wasn't the biggest fan of Peter DeBoer, but he's definitely done a really good job with this team and a different lineup every night. You have to give him a lot of credit. There's a lot of respect there, I think, for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we'll continue breaking down this matchup in just a second, Tony. But first, I just want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers and of Locked On Golden Knights is brought to you by BetOnline.ag. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the College Bowl season and the Pro Football Playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, do not wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. BetOnline, where the game starts. And we just want to thank everybody for making Locked On Rangers and Locked On Golden Knights your first listen every day. And Tony, kind of getting back to previewing this matchup here. Anytime there's one of these crossovers, I always got to check in with former Rangers. And I meant to ask you about Brett Howden last time. He's somebody that kind of drew the ire of Ranger fans because the Rangers, they went into that rebuild. They sent Ryan McDonough and JT Miller to Tampa. They get back, a handful of players, a couple of draft picks. And it just did not work out with Brett Howden in New York. I mean, that's basically the long and short of it. He ends up in Vegas. He goes there for a 4th-round draft pick. I looked at his stats. He's got 9 points in 24 games, so not spectacular, although he did kind of haunt the Rangers in their previous matchup. What have you seen from him? And anything you can share with the Ranger fans about Brett Howden?
I just think a complimentary piece, and I don't think we really expected much out of him, to be honest with you. I just think that's a player that they really wanted. They just wanted him to be that complimentary piece, and he's been out with COVID as well, so he's another player that's been in and out of the lineup. And I don't know. I mean, there's just no great feel one way or the other, about Howden. I think that he's just playing a part in a complimentary role.
Yeah, he did a decent job for the Rangers on the penalty kill, became a pretty valuable member of that unit over the last couple of seasons. But as far as like the scoring and the offensive prowess, it was just never really there. And I guess it's, for the most part, it's basically been more of the same with Vegas. You mentioned COVID a second ago, and I wanted to ask you, how hard or how lightly have the Knights been hit by this? Have they had a lot of players going on the COVID list in and out of the lineup? Because there's certain teams in the league that, I mean, they're just getting killed by it. So, I mean, how has it gone so far with Vegas?
Not bad. Peter DeBoer was on the COVID list, and then we saw Pietrangelo and Dodonov, and they came back. I mean, this organization, I think everyone's like, oh, they get no breaks at all. Well, they cut the COVID, time in isolation down from 10 days to 5. And so, you get back, Pietrangelo, and you get back to Donoff, and then DeBoer wasn't out very late. We talked about Howden, but it has not hit them very hard. And in fact, now the Golden Knights also benefit. The Golden Knights also, also benefit, with the fact that they don't have to take the Canadian trip, up north to Calgary. And there's another game. There were 2 games. And so they benefited, and they wound up now having to play 8 games straight at home. They have 8 games in a row. And so they won't even leave Las Vegas until January the 20th. The games will catch up later on. They'll have to be on the road a lot, but they can't stack up wins. So, on home ice, they've already lost more games at home this season than last.
Yeah, and for the Rangers, I mean, they've been pretty lucky for the most part, too. I mean, they had about 4 players on the list at the same time not too long ago, and I have not seen an update on Artemi Panarin. He's missed the last couple of games being on the list, but I think the encouraging thing, if you're a Ranger fan, is the very simple fact that even without Panarin, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning twice, and they beat the Edmonton Oilers on the second game of a back-to-back. So they're really rolling right now. And they had a couple of guys out. Georgiev was on the list. Ryan Lindgren, who is, I would say, probably the most underrated player on the Rangers. He plays with Adam Fox, so he tends to get overshadowed a little bit, understandably so. And Kevin Rooney, an important fourth-line player. He's been back. He got back in the last game as well. So, yeah, fingers crossed, Tony, that both of our teams stay relatively lucky as it pertains to the COVID list, because, like we were just talking about, there have been teams this season that have had to basically go out there with half their roster missing, and sounds like that has not happened thus far for the Rangers and the Knights. But I wanted to ask you also the goalie matchup. Who are we gonna see in net for the Knights? Would you guess in this game?
Well, my guess would be that Robin Leonard, will be back. He was back on the ice this week, and he should be back. Laurent Brossoit, was filling in. He was going for his, I think, sixth consecutive start, and you could tell he was starting to wear down. So in the game against Nashville, they brought up Logan Thompson from the AHL, and so he was in net. But I think it'll be Robin Leonard. How about for the Rangers? How is Shesterkin doing?
I mean, he's the man. He was out, with a minor injury for a little while, and you got to give props to Alex Georgiev. Georgiev really, really struggled for the Rangers early in the season, and he might be one of those guys that he can't just play once every 2 weeks and produce good results, because that's basically what was happening. He was getting lit up early in the season when he was in a backup role, but when Igor went down, and it's kind of like, okay, well, you're going to be the man for the next couple of weeks here. He was absolutely fantastic, and he was fantastic in this most recent game against the Edmonton Oilers. He made just a ridiculous highlight reel save against Connor McDavid at a really important part in the game. A point-blank stop there. But with all that said, I think it's going to be back to Igor. Georgie played most recently, and I mean, there's no reason not to play Igor Shesterkin, given that he sat for the last game. He's having a Vezina-worthy season. I will say, and this is something that I mentioned in a recent episode, the Raiders have an opportunity if they want, because Igor Shesterkin has had a couple of injuries since coming into the league. And given where the Rangers are in the standings, they're up there, and it's not like they're a fringe playoff team right now. You combine that with the fact that Alex Georgiev has played well. If the Rangers want to, they can scale back Igor's workload just a little bit. I wouldn't go nuts with it. I still think he should get the bulk of the games, but I'm going to be very, very interested to see how they kind of divvy up the playing time going forward. But for this one, I think for sure it'll be Igor Shesterkin, and the Rangers will basically look to just keep rolling here.
Special teams, I want to talk to you about Chris Kreider. Does he really have 12 power play goals?
Yes, he does. And nearly every single one of them is a tip-in goal right there from the doorstep. It's crazy. He got another one in this last game against the Oilers. He has become, it's something that he's always been good at, but over the last season or two, he has become an elite net front presence in the NHL. I mean, if there's somebody better at this role and somebody better at tipping in goals from the doorstep on the power play, I'd love to see who it is, because I can't believe there's too many players that are better at that role right now than Chris Kreider is. He's somebody that's always been a streaky player. And this year, at the age of either 29 or 30, he's finally put it all together, and he's become like a consistent scoring machine night in and night out. And maybe that has something to do with coaching. Maybe Gerard Gallant knows how to push the right buttons, but it's been a pleasure to watch this season. And he's been a huge, huge part of that power play unit for the Rangers.
And you have complete buy-in now for Gerard Gallant, it appears. One of my biggest questions here in Las Vegas is, will VGK, because of the way that they got rid of Gallant, will they do like a tribute video to welcome him back? That is going to be so interesting. There's a game within the game. Peter DeBoer, was asked about the return of Gallant and Reeves, and he said, I think we got a little bit settled down in New York. No, this is going to be much different here in Las Vegas. And that Gallant and Reeves want this more than anything, you would have to believe, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny, I was going to ask you the same question. If Vegas, in your estimation, would be preparing any kind of, like a tribute video, or,
Right.
maybe they'll just put him on the screen and say, hey, Gerard Gallant's back, everybody go crazy. I mean, I got to believe that from the fans, he's going to get a warm reception. I mean, taking an expansion team to the Stanley Cup Finals. And to your point earlier, Tony, we were talking about this. I'm sure there's fans there that never even wanted him fired in the first place. And Peter DeBoer's done a great job. But, yeah, just kind of an unceremonious dismissal of Gerard Gallant. And I think he's going to be received quite well from that Vegas crowd there.
Yeah, we had Nick Cousins come in. It's the reunion tour, earlier this week with the Predators. And then we'll have Gallant coming in with Reeves. And then Marc-Andre Fleury might just give the organization the middle finger. It's going to be such an interesting week, with everyone coming back and the way that Marc-Andre Fleury found out about the trade via social media, and with Gallant getting fired, and holy smokes, they'll do. I mean, everyone here, if you look in the crowd at a Golden Knights game, like I think maybe half or a third of the fans still have Fleury jerseys on, when you go to every game. So that's going to be interesting. But with Gerard Gallant and him and DeBoer didn't get along. And I remember Gallant, called him a clown and some other things. And Ryan Reeves is going to be chirping the entire night. And, he doesn't want to overstep, the boundaries, because he still loves this community, still wants to invest in this community. But I don't know. They have to do a tribute video for Gallant. He meant a lot to the organization, whether the upstairs folks, for VGK like it or not. They're going to have to do something to honor him, because he did a great job here. And again, he brought him to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, I would imagine mostly a positive reception from everybody involved with the Vegas Knights there. I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, maybe differing philosophies with some of the people in the front office and whatnot, but yeah, you can't argue with the results. I mean, an expansion team to the finals, it's pretty crazy. Is there anybody that maybe Ranger fans should keep an eye on, somebody that's not necessarily a household name, somebody that's a little bit under the radar in this game here tonight? Anybody that's kind of caught your eye recently?
Well, I mean, Matthias Janmark has played pretty well, and he's been consistent. And the Nashville game was the first time in 4 games that he didn't score a goal.
Oh,
and
wow.
so he had, 4 goals in 3 games. And, he's just played really well. And I just like, the way that he played. They did move William Carrier to the top line for more of a physical presence. He's not known as a scorer. But that experiment didn't seem to go terrific, and Carrier brings it every night, and he'll play physical. But I would have to say probably Matthias Janmark. How about with the Rangers? Who's got the hot stick?
So it's actually Barclay Goodrow, who, I mean, with him, I mean, you think of him as like a defense first forward, which, I mean, he is. But recently, he's all of a sudden, he's making all these great passes. He's really kind of found the scoring touch. He's on the score sheet just about every single night. Part of that is they have moved him up the lineup. He's now playing on the second line. They've had a little bit of a makeshift second line the last couple of games. You've had Ryan Strome centering Alexis Lafreniere and Barclay Goodrow. When Panarin gets back into the lineup, obviously he's going to go back there to his normal spot in the second line. But I could see Barclay Goodrow maybe sticking around with them. With Panarin and Strome, it seems like they really appreciate the opportunity to play with like a grinder and a physical player. And Barclay Goodrow obviously brings that. But even beyond the scoring, I mean, he's a huge part of the penalty kill, forces a lot of turnovers, just a solid player. Somebody that, if the Rangers are up by a goal, you want this dude on the ice protecting that lead late in the game. So, yeah, very, very much looking forward to seeing what Barclay Goodrow can do. Bring in, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion in the offseason in their bid to get a lot more tougher and a lot more physical. And he's done all that, and now all of a sudden he's putting up points too. So can't really ask for much more for Barclay Goodrow, at least in recent games here.
How in the world did Ryan Reeves steal the puck from Connor McDavid?
I don't know, man.
What was that? I've never seen him skate that fast.
Reeves is full of surprises, man. It's very easy to think of him as the enforcer and the goon, but he's got 2 of the nicest assists on the Rangers this entire season. He's made a couple of really nice passes. He can surprise you every now and then, and I think when he's out there, everybody's like, oh man, it's this wrecking ball. I got to watch out for him. And then the next thing you know, a little spin move and a nice pass. And every once in a while, he can chip in that way. He's still looking for his first goal. But I mean, I love what Ryan Reeves has brought to the table here. It finally feels like the Rangers have a bona fide 4th line that goes out there and plays like a 4th line. And he's obviously a huge part of that for the Rangers.
Yeah, Gallant doesn't care if he scores or not. It's just his presence, and he skates hard, and he's going to bring it every night. And he's fun to have around as well. And then the last time I spoke to you, Lafreniere was in the doghouse with Gerard Gallant. He played a few mind games with him, and it appears as though now Lafreniere has settled in.
Yeah, no, he's coming out of it a little bit. And I think part of it is, again, a little bit of a move up the lineup. He's been playing on the left wing on the second line there. Over the last 3 games, he's got 2 goals and 1 assist. Now, both of his goals are fairly mundane. They're not like highlight reel goals.
At
The
least he didn't
one,
kick it in. He didn't kick it into the net, did he?
no, he
To
didn't
break.
kick it in, but
Okay, break the streak.
but he had basically a wide open net both times. The first one, you had Julien Gauthier pressuring. Who was the goalie? Was it Vasilevsky? I think it was against Tampa Bay.
Tampa, right?
Yeah, but basically forced the goalie into a mistake, and then Lafreniere intercepted the goalie's pass, put it into the net. And then in this most recent game, Strome pressured the goalie, pressured Koskinen, and got the puck away from him, put it in front, and Lafreniere was there. So, I mean, critics of Lafreniere might kind of roll their eyes. Oh, well, anybody can score on that. But, hey, you know what? He's still hustling into the zone. He's still getting into the right position and, receiving the pass and putting it into the net. So, yeah, I mean, Lafreniere has definitely stepped up recently, and you just hope that it's a sign of things to come. Him and Kakko have both shown flashes this season. I think Ranger fans would like to see them become more consistent, but that's when this team gets really, really scary, if Kakko and Lafreniere start living up to the hype, because, we know what we're going to get from Panarin and Zibanejad and Kreider and Fox, but when those two guys can really reach that next level, I think that's when you've really got something if you're a Ranger fan.
Yeah, Las Vegas fans are asking, about Panarin, and he won't be playing, unfortunately, but we haven't seen him, play here. So I don't believe, well, it's been a while also, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely someone that's exciting. And I think the Vegas fans would enjoy, watching his game. And Mika, in that first meeting was pretty good. And again, the Marchessault goal on penalty shots is what was the deciding factor, in the meeting against the Rangers. And, special teams. Now, I told you earlier in the season, VGK was 0 for 19. That's how they started out. They're currently in an 0 for 12 slump. They figured things out there for a while, and now nothing doing on the power play. And what about Edmonton? That's what I wanted to ask you. Are they Dunsville? You saw them the other night, and they got off to that hot start, and everyone here in the Pacific Division is wondering about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I wouldn't say that they're done. I mean, there's just too much talent on that team, but they are a little bit top heavy, right? You've got McDavid, and then you've got Draisaitl, and then it's kind of like, all right, well, who's going to step up beyond that? And I think something that's been an issue for them is goaltending. I have never been a Mike Smith guy at all. I mean, even when he was at his best, I thought he was like at least a little bit overrated, and he's getting up there. He's pushing 40, I believe. Koskinen's all right. But I don't know. I think that they're missing at least a few complementary pieces. You can't just rely on one or two players to carry your team. We saw that last season. The Draisaitl and McDavid, they put up these amazing numbers in the regular season. Playoffs roll around, and they get bumped pretty quick every year, it seems like. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is for them. I wouldn't say that they're done, but, yeah, the Rangers pretty much had their way with them. It was great to see.
And VGK, they had against Nashville their streak of scoring 3 or more goals in 14 straight games. And they've been doing a good job of scoring. They just can't get back defensively. And then the glue guy has been Alex Pietrangelo, with Alec Martinez being out this season. And I just think, that's another area. They just have not been defending very well. Can the Rangers take advantage of that?
I think they can, because, the Rangers have really been scoring a lot of goals recently, and that top line has caught fire. I mean, Kakko has slowed down a little bit, but Mika and Kreider, it's weird because recently it's been a little bit of a role reversal. It seems like in recent games, Kreider's been setting up Mika for goals, whereas earlier in the season, it was very much the opposite of that. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Rangers that have really kind of caught fire recently. Every single night, it seems like Adam Fox ends up with 2 assists. So yeah, I mean, if Vegas is struggling defensively, I think that could be a recipe for the Rangers to put up some goals, because they've been scoring lately. They've got, I think, they have 3 straight games of scoring exactly 4 goals, and the game before that they scored 3 goals. So they've been putting the puck in the net for sure. But do you want to? I figure we can wrap up with this, Tony. Do you want to throw out a prediction for this game, a final score, anybody to get on the score sheet, anything big to happen in this game here?
Well, I just think, again, and I don't think that they've solved everything with Carlson. I just think he had one game, and he wound up kicking the puck into the net, and he finally broke through. It was his 100th goal. That's great for him. And I think his 4th goal of the season. But I don't think it will be him. I think if you look to anyone, I think it could be a Janmark that steps it up. Chandler Stevenson has cooled off a little bit. And so I would just want to see how, because I mean, every night he doesn't have Pacioretty, he doesn't have Stone next to him. Like every night there's someone new. Now there's Carrier, sooner or later, I think he's going to break through. And I'd have to say it'll either be Janmark or it could be Chandler Stevenson. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like a final score, I know the Knights got the Rangers earlier this season, 3-2 in the shootout. I think the Rangers are going to win by that same final score and put up a 3-2 win in overtime. And I think maybe Adam Fox gets the game winner, taking advantage of the extra real estate that comes with 3-on-3 overtime. I know that's an oddly specific prediction there, but I'm going to look great if it actually ends up happening.
Yeah, no, I'm leaning towards the Rangers side just because again, it's that physical presence and playing physical, and what they did against Edmonton, if they can just replicate that against the Golden Knights, keep them on the outside, because that's exactly what Nashville did. And it took VGK a while to wake up in that game. I think it'll be low scoring, 4-3, 3-2, somewhere in that vicinity too. And I think the Rangers could pull out a win and a big emotional return for Gerard Gallant.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like we said, it's a clash between two first-place teams here, and clearly a prediction of the Stanley Cup Finals as well. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. But yeah, Tony, this was a ton of fun, man, and we'll definitely have to do this again at some point down the road here.
Thank you so much, man, and should be a great game. And I hope that a lot of Ranger fans come here, people that I can catch up with.
Absolutely. And Ranger fans, Knight fans, thanks for tuning in as always, and we'll catch you guys next time.